Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Fatmata here from Traditionally Inspired Meaningful Art, and here is another weekly update of what's been going on in the sewing room and in my crafting life. And I want to dive right in. If you didn't watch my episode last week, I'll link to that down below as well, but I hope that you are going to be able to get caught up. I am working on a bridal adjacent garment for my best friend to wear to one of the events leading up to her wedding, and we are making the Estella dress by Vicky Sews. We had purchased the size 48 initially, and Vicky Sews patterns, you have to choose your height bracket and then select a single size. Once I made up the initial toile, which I will pop in here, we tried it on. It was a decent fit. However, my best friend felt quite boxy in it. She didn't like that there wasn't enough of a cinch in the bodice section, which I think is really essential for the Estella pattern. I'd mentioned previously that we were a little bit confused as to what size to select for her because the bust and waist measurements didn't exactly align with her proportions, so we sort of went up a size just to give her room in the waist. That turned out to not be necessary as much as we thought. So then we sized down and purchased the pattern again, because once you download the Vicky Sews pattern, I don't think you can change the sizes anymore. That's what it said. So we went ahead and purchased the size 44, and then I made up just the bodice. So she came over again and tried on just the bodice piece, and that with the undergarments that she would plan to wear on the day of. It just wasn't a great fit. There was a lot of bunching in the back bodice, and we did not love that at all. So I think it was tight and stretching and pulling. You could even see at the side seam there was sort of a wave in there, which let us know that it was definitely pulling. But we did like how it fit in the bust area, so in the front. And I had lengthened the bodice as well so that it was closer to her belly button than where the original pattern sort of sat, which was quite high-waisted on her. So a lot of different adjustments were made. So that was the second toile. From there, we decided, we like the back of the size 48 and we like the front of the size 44. Can we mash those together? So I went ahead and tried my best to do that. And that is what you see here. I'm going to bring forth the mannequin so we can talk about this. So what we have here is quite the mashup. This is the size 44 bodice of the Estella dress from Vicky Sews. I added 1.5 inches to the waist, so I brought that lower. And this is the back bodice piece of the size 48. Now, this is the size 48 that we had originally made. Because this was a toile, I was not interested in having to cut out more and more pieces of this, especially because the satin fabric that we're using right here, we picked up at a fabric store out in Virginia, and we might end up using this for other garments that we're making, so I didn't want to keep eating into that fabric if I didn't need to. So instead of cutting out new pieces, I just went ahead and added a strip of fabric. You could probably see it here. And with that addition, then I went ahead and cut it out so that it aligned and matched up with the side seam here of the size 44 with that extended and dropped waist that I added. You can kind of see it's a bit narrower towards the zipper and then gets a bit wider to fit the front. The entire front, including the skirt piece, is the size 44 and the back is the size 48. Does that mean that the size that we truly needed was a size 46? Possibly, but I don't know. And you know what? I'm not buying the size 46 to find out. So this fit her quite well. She tried it on this weekend and we feel really happy with the fit that we were able to execute. It gives her a bit of that fit within the bust line that's going to be really nice and polished, especially once we add the lining pieces, which will bring down this bodice by just a bit to fold under, which I think is going to be a really nice crisp square neckline. These straps will also get a bit narrower once we have the facing and all of the lining pieces set in with the sort of final version. Because the alterations at this point are not that clean cut, it's not a straight size 44 or a straight size 48 with specific alterations. There's some things that we heightened, removed, etc., etc. It's just become a bit less cut and dry. So for that reason, what I'm actually going to do for the bodice specifically is pick apart these seams and use the actual pieces within this toile as the pattern pieces. I am going to just take this apart and then lay this actual fabric down onto the pattern piece and sort of, make the adjustments onto the pattern piece or directly onto the fabric. I'm thinking I'm going to try and do it directly onto the pattern pieces first. And because this satin fabric is quite sturdy and has a decent amount of body, I'm hopeful that it hasn't warped too much with the fittings and things like that, that I can lay it back on the pattern piece and just draw in those adjustments to then cut out the pattern pieces on the silk fabric that we picked up at the fabric place basement out in Alexandria, Virginia a couple weeks ago. So that is my goal. But I'm really, really happy. I was thrilled that she was excited about the current fit and that we feel like we are ready to now proceed and actually make the garment in the fashion fabric. So that was really exciting. So last week, another thing that I made was style pattern 2274. And as I mentioned previously, I was curious to try the view 4, which are the shorts. You'll see the line drawing here. Line drawing feels pretty deceiving to me. I saw a line going down the back there and I thought that that meant there was a seam down the back, and there isn't. So I don't really know what that line was meant to indicate there, but anyways, I did get a chance to toile this out of that same satin fabric that I just showed you. And in my previous video, I mentioned that I didn't know whether the size 16, which is the largest size in this pattern envelope, would fit. So I was going to go ahead and measure the pieces and then potentially add more to the pattern prior to cutting it out, which is exactly what I did. Based on what I measured on the pattern, it felt like I needed to add about 5/8 of an inch to the shorts front and then about a full inch to the shorts back. So I went ahead and drew that in from the size 16 line, added those additional, added that additional measure there to both pattern pieces prior to cutting it out just on the side seams. It was very easy to put together, especially using this heavier, more substantial satin fabric. So it was a breeze to put together this toile. I kind of put in a regular style zipper in there and then added the elastic as the facing. What's interesting to note about this pattern, if you can see here from the grain lines, is that this was cut out on the bias, which I was not expecting at all. I remember taking the pattern pieces out and like, what? So I was stunned, but I do think that's what helps with the drape and gives it that sort of skirt-like appearance. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think that's going to be pretty cool in the final fabric that we are going to make this out of. So we have now made 2 toiles of this, and what we noted was that it was too big. So I think all of the additional sort of width that I added was not necessary. So I just went ahead and made a note that I should just cut out the straight size 16 for her. And then we also noted that the length was too long. So it's looking very Bermuda shorty, and that wasn't necessarily the look we wanted for this bridal sort of look. So we, I think we measured about 3 inches that we were going to remove from the bottom hem. And that led us to this pair. So I didn't cut out a totally new pair. I took the shorts apart and laid out each individual piece and cut it down to size. So I just trimmed off the excess that I had added to the side seams for all of the pieces, and then went around and cut off 3 inches from the bottom. So I have a little helper here, little helper hands. Okay, help, hold it up. So with these shorts, we then ended up, I removed the additional 3 inches from the bottom and had her try it on again over the weekend, and it was a much better fit. All right, thank you so much. So that was a much better fit. She loves it. She likes the drape and flowiness of it. In this pattern, it does say that they allow for a 5/8 of an inch hem on the bottom here. On the pattern pieces, that's what it states. Now, for the final fabric that we're going to use is this almost like light champagne-y colored, almost oatmeal colored, gorgeous satin fabric. Like, look at the drape on this, the sheen. And I know the light is probably distorting it a bit. I'm recording late, so apologies if you can't really get the true, color, but it is just a dreamy fabric and a lot more fluid than this is, right? So it's definitely going to give a lot more drape and flow and really give off that sort of skirt-like vibe that we're going for. And I'm curious if the 5/8 of an inch allowed hem would be the best on this fabric, or if I should attempt to do a narrow rolled hem or possibly something else. I'm not sure. All I know is that this is going to be starched to oblivion so that it can give me that same sort of ease of making, particularly since I have to cut it on the bias. So I'm hopeful that it behaves itself. I'm thinking I should possibly do French seams on here just to make sure everything is nice and neat on the inside. So this is going to be the final fabric, but I'm really happy that we've at least made sure that the fit works, and it's awesome. She fit the size that came in the pattern. I just want to show you what I did on the inside. So I did finish it off. Instead of a facing, I used elastic. So this is that soft elastic band. It's 1.5 inches wide, and I have been doing this as a hack to a number of the garments that I've made recently that require a facing, and just using this elastic instead, just to give a nice snug fit that can sort of give you a bit of ease and comfort when you're wearing it. The shorts are meant to be paired with the Erica Bunker Nomi pattern, ME2065. And unfortunately still no in-store Joann's pattern sales recently, but they did have an online sale on the Simplicity website, and Nomi patterns, New Look and Butterick were on sale this weekend that I'm recording it. So I went ahead and just purchased the blazer pattern for $5.99, and I bought the PDF version. When I was doing the Estella dress earlier this week, I did have to tape together the PDF patterns. I did the PDF pattern for the lining as well as the size 44. And it wasn't the worst thing that I've ever done. Now, this blazer pattern, the Nomi ME2065, is quite involved. I opened it up, the PDF like printing layout, and I was like, ooh, it's a lot of pages. But I feel like I'll pick an evening one of the days of this week where maybe I don't have enough energy to actually sew anything. I don't want to do something that has to be really thought-provoking. And I will just sit at the dining room table and just tape this together. I did find that when I was doing the Vicky Sews, like taping together that PDF, what helped me is before I left school, I used the like paper trimmer and just cut off 2 of the edges of the paper where it was designated, and that helped tremendously when I was like piecing them together, because I could align the corners since I could see it. So that was helpful. And also I got like I put my tape in a tape dispenser, and that made it easy to just pull, so I wasn't like fiddling with a roll of tape. It was in the dispenser, so I could just tape it along. And I did the rows first, every row, and then I put the rows together to like make the full pattern piece, and that worked out well for me. So I'm not afraid anymore of piecing together PDF patterns. Still not my favorite thing just yet, but at least helps me get one step of the way closer to conquering that blazer pattern. This week, we're just piecing together the PDF. That's all I have related to the blazer. Now, for the Estella dress, what I would like to do is to go ahead and begin unpicking, make all of the adjustments to the paper pattern pieces, and possibly cut out the silk fabric and the lining fabric for the Estella dress. I'm not saying to sew it up. If I get there, I'd be happy. But if I could unpick this, really get all of the details and the adjustments down onto the paper pattern pieces so that I can confidently cut out the silk fabric and all the lining pieces, I would be very, very happy with that level of progress. So that's my goal there. The shorts are, I have the green light to move forward with these. So I mean, this is like if I get around to it. Again, it was quite an easy one to put together, but because it's cut on the bias, while it was, I think it is important that I cut out the fabric and sew it at the same time. This isn't something that I want to cut out and sort of leave and let it sit because I don't want things stretching on the bias. It has to be a day where I really can commit to doing it full out from cutting to sewing. So we'll see if I get to that this week. And then that leaves Frocktails, which is going to be this upcoming Saturday, February 3rd. And I laughed out loud. There are a number of you who watched my previous video where and legitimately were like, okay, so we cannot wait to see the night before the sewing marathon. It's like you know me better than I know myself. I'm looking forward to responding to all of those comments. Things have been a little bit crazy, but I have been able to read some of them as they've come in. So thank you all so much for your feedback on my previous video. And I am really eager to get into the comments, but that was a hoot. And I am still unsure if I'm gonna make anything. I did pull out some fabrics. Let me show you. So this is one of the fabrics that I recently got. It was gifted to me on my trip to Guinea by my aunt. So it's a beautiful like mandala sort of print on this really beautiful base, rich navy sort of blue with this almost, I don't know what to call this color. It's like a blush color. Now, the reason why I picked that out is because I had picked out this fabric. So this is the back here. So it's sort of like stitched in place. It has some scalloping, which you can see a bit easier from the back. But again, it's this gorgeous blush color, which I was very surprised at how well they match. And it's just so interesting. That's all. Like, if I were gonna make something for Frocktails, I'd want it to be kind of cool and interesting like this. And I don't know what else I would use this. However, while I have sketched something out in my sketchbook, I don't know that I'll have enough time this week to actually focus on it enough to execute it in the way that I would want it executed. So I'm still in two minds about whether or not I'm gonna make anything for Frocktails, but these are the two fabrics that I had sort of pulled out of my stash that I thought could work really well together. And for this fabric, it is just a border. I picked it up at G Street Fabric in the dead stock section. They almost, I mean, they weren't going to sell it to me. I think they weren't planning to sell it at all. And I think it's because it's just this like fluffy bit sewn in at a border, like a very narrow strip of it. And then it's just this sheer part. And then you have that same roughly bit on the other border. Now, I'd want to use this like on the bodice in some way. You know what I mean? Like I think it's gorgeous, but what am I putting under it? How, this isn't really a stretch fabric, so I can't just, you know, casually toss it together. I absolutely don't know, but I knew I had to have it when I saw it. And the fact that it perfectly matches the color in here just makes me feel like I want to use them together. I don't know. I don't know if time will permit. And I would hate to sort of haphazardly try and make something and then end up twiddling my, like doing a lot of work for something that I ultimately can't wear and then trading off that time that I could have been working on some of the bridal pieces. So I'm still weighing that out. We shall see. In other news, this Saturday we had a lot of fun at my best friend's mom's house, and we had a craft day with a bunch of our girlfriends, and we got to work on some of those crepe paper flowers that I was telling you about last week. A lot happened in here. This is the start of a peony, and it's just so darling. So here it is. Really beautiful. And I brought some homework back with me So a lot of the crepe paper, a lot of the beginning buds of some of the more complex flowers that we plan to make. So I'm hopeful that possibly on some of the nights, if I don't really feel like I have the energy to, let's say, sew something up or figure out these makes, I might be able to work on some of these flowers in the interim so that I am doing something productive towards getting us ready. And that'll be fun. So another update is I have decided to do a Make 9 for 2024, and I'm really excited to record that for you. It's going to have a really darling theme, and I can't wait to share it with you. I'm excited about each and every single one of the pieces that I have listed on there. Some of them you'll hear and will be a little bit familiar with, so that's good. But I am trying to be very intentional about how I use my Make 9 this year, and like I said, I can't wait to share it with you and hope that you are equally excited to hear about it. All right, folks, well, I hope that you are eager to kind of see where some of this sewing and my plans will take me. I'm very, very excited to continue sharing that with you and for bringing you along on this journey this year. If you have any comments, leave them for me down below. I'm really nervous to ask you all anything about a possible Frocktails outfit because part of me does not want to be persuaded to want to make anything more than I'm already beginning to feel the itch to do. But I mean, listen, sound off in the comments down below what your thoughts are on this floofy textured fabric and this gorgeous Ankara fabric. I don't know, y'all. Let me know in the comments down below what you are currently working on and what you are most excited to see here on the channel. Until next time, stay creative, folks. Bye-bye.